Hello again, I'm Robert Fitton, and here we are again in 1983 as I continue the long journey through 1983, reviewing and rating albums chronologically by release date. Again, no live albums, no soundtracks, no compilations, no EPs, no jazz, no country, but pretty much everything else. So we are in the middle of October, the front middle part of October 1983, and for whatever reason, over the next couple of weeks, it's a lot of pop albums that are coming out. There's a couple of like mainstream rock ones I'll talk about, a little reggae in there, but for the most part, this particular video in the series got a lot of pop in there, including two absolutely huge albums to start off with. On October 14th, 1983, a couple of absolutely huge albums were released. We'll talk about the other one next. First, though, Cyndi Lauper. She's so unusual. She just absolutely blasted onto the scene in 1983 with this debut album. Look at that colorful cover there. Absolutely incredible. And yeah, this was one of those, when I talk about being 10 years old in 1983 and making an absolute concentrated effort to start listening to hit radio, knowing all the music, watching the videos, and really starting to get with the times and all of these colorful new artists that were coming out at the time, making it all exciting, she was probably one of the more colorful ones. And certainly she had a lot of fun with her music and her videos, and it was great to be exposed to all of that and be right there as it was happening. And this album is loaded with those hits. Girls Just Want to Have Fun is on here. You know, we all love that, right? Girls Just Want to Have Fun. Time After Time, the sort of light rock kind of love ballad on there that gave her some legitimacy, I guess. And, you know, older people could actually appreciate her because, well, she's settled down on this one. This is actually a nice love ballad. So you have that one on here. You've got She Bop, which starts off side 2. This has the album version on there. I definitely prefer the single version, which was also the video version. Well, the video version was more like a kind of an extended version of the single version, but I definitely love the single remix of that. But you got the album version on here, which is pretty good too. But all of these album track, even the album track, she just keeps this energy up, this quirkiness of her personality. She was absolutely lovable and so colorful and so wonderful in those videos with what was his name? Captain Lou Albano or something like that, the wrestler with the rubber bands in his beard, and she had the rock and wrestling connection later on. That was just, I don't know what, but that was such a good idea. Rowdy Roddy Piper and all that. In the videos and every time the video would come out, you'd be like, that's her real mom in the video, and that's her real boyfriend. I wonder whatever happened to that guy. Remember the guy that was in all of her videos that was supposed to be her real boyfriend? I don't know whatever happened to him, but he's in all the videos. But yeah, I'll Kiss You, and yeah, even the song Yeah Yeah at the end. That's a great way to wrap this up with just some complete zaniness, a total energy there. And Witness, which I always thought it sounded like she says, I don't want to be a wet nurse. Wet nurse! It's like, okay, well, don't be a wet nurse then. My favorite track on here, though, and how always has been, is All Through the Night, which didn't even have a video. She was known as being this MTV, you know, video, whatever, and she actually did not have a video for one of the biggest songs on here, All Through the Night. But that song is just fantastic. It's such an incredible feel to that song. She totally nails it. It's a little more serious in tone, a little more down, but it's not like a ballad like Time After Time. But the keyboards in that, the melody of that, her singing, everything just works so well in that track for me. And then she has the Prince cover, When You Were Mine, where it's 1983 and she doesn't change the gender of that song. So either she has a girlfriend who's found a guy, or she has a boyfriend who's found another guy. One of the two is going on in this song, because again, she does not change the gender from the original Prince lyrics, and he's there sleeping between the two of us. So yeah, just great stuff, and so much popular. Every song on here, most people know, especially when it gets going. I mean, the last 3 or 4 tracks are more album tracks, but even When You Were Mine, that's the one she performed live at the 1984 Billboard Awards, or whatever, the American Music Awards, or whatever that was so popular. But the album starts off on kind of a mid-level with this Money Changes Everything song. It's okay, but it really just takes flight with the second track, Girls Just Want to Have Fun. Another one of those albums where I had all 3 versions. I had started with the cassette, Went on to get the CD, and then later picked up the album somewhere just to have the big cover and everything and have it on a record. And, you know, this was like 99 cents or something. These days, this is like a $15, $18 album. But yeah, Cyndi Lauper, she's so unusual. At the time she was, but, you know, she's also so talented and so much fun. I'm giving this 5 stars, by the way, in case you haven't figured that out yet. You know, Michael Jackson's Thriller is still top of the charts, all over the video shows, MTV, all over the radio. He's a mega superstar. That Thriller album just continues to sell and be popular way into 1983, way into 1984, even though it actually came out in, towards the end of 1982. That's why it's not part of this video series. But somebody that gave him a pretty good run for it was Lionel Richie with this album, Can't Slow Down. This was a phenomenon. I think this sold millions and millions and millions and millions of copies. And for good reason. It is just loaded with hit singles. I mean, nearly every song off of here, the same as kind of as Thriller, nearly every song released as a hit single. It had a video, huge top 10, top 5 hits. And if you basically removed a couple of the tracks off of here and replaced them with Dancing on the Ceiling and You Are, and maybe Truly or whatever, you would basically have a Lionel Richie's Greatest Hits album. This thing was just an absolute phenomenon. Starts off with a song that was not a hit, the title track, Can't Slow Down, sounding very similar to the song that starts off Thriller, Wanna Be Starting Something. It's got the same beat to it. It's got the same groove. I actually prefer Can't Slow Down, though, the song. After that, the mega smash, All Night Long, All Night. The video was on Friday Night Videos and the local video shows, and I'm sure it was all over MTV at the time. It was all over the radio. Probably the biggest hit on here. All night long, all night, Carabo, Fiesta, Forever, Limey. You know, saying party and whatever in different languages. But yeah, that's a smash. It's 6.5 minutes on the album version. Penny Lover, nice ballad, you know, follows that. And then it's the country hit. He actually got on the country charts, got on country radio with the song Stuck on You. Again, 3 big, huge hit singles in a row. And that's the end of side 1. This only has 8 songs on it. Now, some of them are like All Night Long, is like I said, 6.5 minutes long. But this is still relatively a short album. Couple of duds start off side 2, and by duds I mean non-hits. They Are Love Will Find a Way, and The Only One. Now this album is produced by Lionel Richie himself, so you got to give him props for doing his own production here and having a mega smash hit, and co-produced by a guy named James Anthony Carmichael, except for one song called The Only One. That was produced by David Foster, and I think it's so great that the David Foster track is one of only 3 tracks on this entire album that didn't become a hit single. And it's definitely the low point on the album. So that's hilarious to me. Why even have him produce something on here? Just have Lionel Richie produce something else on here and have another big hit maybe. Running with the Night is after that. Man, my favorite song on here. Always loved that song. Love the video. Super funky. Those noises at the end of the album version, that whatever that is, sounded like a horror movie or something like that. I've always loved Running with the Night. And of course, the ballad Hello wraps up the album. That's the one where it had the visually impaired girl in the video, and she's making like the bust of him and, you know, clay molding class or whatever, this little sculpture thing. And he's like, you know, on the phone, hello, is it me you're looking for? Later on, of course, you know, decades later, that would become a big meme. But it all started here. You know, not my favorite song on here. It is a very slow ballad. But, I mean, Lionel Richie, you can't go wrong with a Lionel Richie ballad. If you're going to listen to ballads, it might as well be the best. And this guy's the best at ballads, as far as I'm concerned. So, yeah, I've had this since it first came out. However, I did what I call the format tour with this album. When it first was out, I had it on cassette, because that's what I was getting in 1983 as far as new music. 84, 85, 86, I was getting cassettes. That's why I decided to put the cassette, artwork up in the corner here for all of these albums, because this was the cassette year for me, or one of the cassette years. In the 90s, I got the CD. And then in the early 2000s, when I started getting records of popular records, not just rare stuff like I'd been getting the whole time, but I actually started picking up albums from the 80s on record so I could have the inner sleeve with the lyrics and the big artwork and all that. I actually got the record. So I've had this on all 3 formats. And yeah, so there's a few 80s albums like that, and I call it the format tour. The album artwork on here, though, is really, I guess, kind of, aside from the David Foster production on the one song, is the most puzzling thing to me. I mean, this looks like the cover of a Better Homes and Gardens magazine or something. They couldn't come up with something better. The album's called Can't Slow Down. He looks like he's pretty much slowed down. Slowed down? Is that a word? He's pretty much slowed down to the point where he's like sitting. I mean, that's pretty slow. He has slowed down. I almost said slown again. I'm making up new words. And he's sitting on the back too. But yeah, excellent, 5 stars, obviously. And Running with the Night has always been a favorite to me. Still love that song to this day. We'll crank that up every once in a while. That song has never left my my musical sphere, you know, so... but yeah, All Night Long's great. You know, Stuck on You's wonderful. You know, just an excellent album almost all the way through. There's always going to be that one song you skip over. For me, it's the only one. It's the David Foster song. But yeah, Lionel Richie, Can't Slow Down. Man, what a killer album. All right, let's talk about a duo with a unique sound. They are from Hamburg. They are called Warning. And just 2 guys. They had just 2 albums out. Their self-titled debut the previous year, and then 1983, the album is called Electric Eyes. And this is sort of goth, synth, kind of 80s kind of thing. A lot of it is very slower and just kind of this chugging along, this you know, kind of thing. But the thing that sets them out is the vocals. Everything is down here. And it's all, like I said, they're from Germany, but they sing in English with this German accent. Everything sounds like this. This is a very evil sort of sound. I've seen them referred to as Darth Vader's band, which I can get that. Their appearance is sort of like that too. So yeah, Warning is their name. This album works on a few different levels. This is eerie stuff. I can see this, you know, being played for like a Halloween night, or when you want to get something that's kind of evil sounding, little, you know, eerie going on, somewhat scary, I guess. And then it also works because it's completely absurd. I mean, these voices are just, it's like Merciful Fate, but it's not quite as comical. It's more just like tongue-in-cheek type of thing. It's not just outright ridiculous like the Merciful Fate King Diamond vocals can be. In fact, if they would have put these vocals with that music, that would have really been something. But this is definitely more electronic kind of thing going on, and they do have little flourishes here and there that kind of change up the song. The track on here, Dark Crystal, features a little girl's voice, or it's a little child. I'm assuming it's a little girl. You are big, but I am small, so why do you fear me? You know, like this crazy little, you know, possessed child singing. This whole like choir comes in, an evil sounding choir comes in. For the song Journey to the Other Side. That's really cool. Night Crossing is a great instrumental. If you're kind of done with the voices at that time, I think this is more towards the end of the album. Night Crossing instrumental with just some really nice guitar work in it. So there's a nice electric guitar in here as well. It's definitely a rock-oriented album, but it is more in that 80s kind of synth goth kind of thing as well. Just sounds like you're going into something evil, but it certainly is a lot of fun. I don't think this is something to be taken super seriously. I mean, the very first song on here, White Camels, or just some bizarre lyrics on that of white camels on ice, and all again sung in this vocal like this. You know, so check this out. Warning and Electric Eyes. Like I said, they only had 2 albums. I have not heard the other one. I'm sure I'll get to that at one point. But this was quite a discovery. Once again, they're from Hamburg, and I'm going to give this 4 stars because, like I said, it does work on different levels. It's a lot of fun. It can be quite absurd, you know, especially when the vocals start going up. You know, I can't really imitate it, their higher vocals, but it almost like they're whining in some songs, parts of the lyrics. But yeah, check this out. Warning and Electric Eyes. There's not a lot that sound like this. Jimmy Jamison was the lead singer for the band Survivor when they had this huge album out that featured the hits like High on You and I Can't Hold Back and The Search Is Over. Burning Heart, I don't think Burning Heart's on here. Burning Heart's from Rocky 4. But yeah, he was the lead singer of Survivor when they had all their hits, with the exception of Eye of the Tiger. So that's the only one he didn't sing on that was huge. But yeah, so he was the lead singer of Survivor, and also the lead singer for this band, Target. Yeah. Any excuse to show this album cover, really. Target, everyone, Target. Between that, because we're talking about 1983, he was in the band Cobra, and they had the album called First Strike. There would be no second strike. Cobra features also Mandy Meyer and Tommy Kaiser from Crocus, so they got a little bit of, of a harder sound than Survivor, especially the first couple of tracks on here. Really just blast out, start rocking out. Right away, littered with cliches. The very first song you hear, Blood on Your Money, starts out with, you got your cards on the table and you're holding your ace and you're on the run. You got my heart on the run, whatever. It's just a series of cliches, but they're rocking out. They're having fun. If You Can't Rock and Roll Me is the next one, so you get a little rock and roll in the title there. But yeah, so a decent album, it's fun. It's got some really nice guitar riffs in it, very easy guitar riffs, but really basic stuff, but it works for this particular type of sound. They're not trying to overdo things. Jimmy Jamison has a great voice, of course. You got competent players in here. They're just rocking out, basically. And as the album goes on, it gets a little less rock oriented, and we start slipping into more rock pop stuff that kind of sounds a little more like Survivor. And then, of course, we get a power ballad in here as well called Looking at You. And, there's a song on here called Danger Zone. If you're a rock band in the 80s, you got to have a title like Danger Zone in there, or Standing in the Strike Zone, or, Heat on the Street, or, whatever. So, yeah, they're your basic rock band. I love that album cover, by the way. That looks like that was thrown together in 5 minutes. But, yeah, Cobra, the vocal styling on here has a little bit of a David Coverdale kind of cadence to it. He doesn't, have the voice like David Coverdale, but it's kind of the same kind of vocal styling. So, Cobra sounding a little bit like Whitesnake, as you would expect, I guess, both snakes. But yeah, Cobra's pretty cool. It's decent. If you like 80s rock, you're probably not going to be disappointed with this. It's not overridden by huge 80s drums, or, they only bring in the keyboards when it's time for the, the slower songs. So they're rocking out. They do a decent job. I'm going to give this 3 stars. It's fun. And it's not a complete embarrassment or anything like that, so you might want to check this out if you're into 80s rock and you've never heard Cobra. I know they didn't do too much because they only had the one album, and then Jimmy Jamison goes off to join Survivor and never looks back. So yeah, Cobra, First Strike. On October 18th, 1983, the first posthumous album from the Carpenters was released called Voice of the Heart. Karen Carpenter had passed away in February of 1983, and this was an album compiled of songs that were outtakes from their previous 2 albums, also a couple of new songs, including the first song just called Now, that was, going to be made for a future full release, but that didn't happen, so they compiled the older outtakes with 2 new songs. And you have Voice of the Heart. I think in order to fully appreciate the Carpenters, they have to be something that you were really into at a young age. Karen Carpenter's voice is just majestic, of course. She comes off with this just warm, sort of motherly or big sister kind of a vibe going on when I hear her voice. I wasn't really familiar with them that much as a child, though. I knew Top of the World. That was the one, because that was the one that would sometimes get played on country radio, and that's what my family all listened to in the car, everywhere. It was all country radio, so that's why I know all those 70s, early 80s country songs. But that's the one that would get played on country radio with the steel guitar version. And I didn't really know Rainy Days and Mondays, or, We've Only Just Begun, or any of that kind of stuff until later on. They never were on K-Tel albums. I'm assuming that's a licensing thing or whatever. They're probably too big for that. And so didn't really hear a lot of the Carpenters growing up, but I can definitely appreciate Karen Carpenter's voice, and it is obviously all over this album. Thankfully, unlike some of the earlier Carpenters albums I've heard, there's no solo Richard Carpenter song on here. Wow, that guy, terrible. Maybe a great arranger or whatever, but stay off the mic, dude. I've already talked about that in a previous video. So that's one good thing about this album. This is not really light rock or soft rock. This is just light and soft. There's really no rock going on here. So just know that going in. Very sentimental sounding. It does have this kind of cloud over the top of it because Karen Carpenter's passed away now. Everybody that appreciated the Carpenters, I'm sure, was very sad when this was released. It wasn't probably the type of thing you went out and, oh my God, Karen Carpenter's new album, I gotta get. It was more of like the Carpenters' new album. Well, I guess I'll buy it because I'm a Carpenters fan and put it on, and then you listen to it and have a nice cry or something. There are certainly sad songs on here, and there are uplifting ones too, like the very first song Now. The second song on here, called Sailing on the Tide, is this all about, I love sailing and there's beautiful skies and all that, but they put this slight effect on Karen Carpenter's voice, and it, not necessary at all. Thankfully, it's only on the one song, but it's the second song, so you're like, is this going to continue through the album? We don't need an effect on Karen Carpenter's voice. You need a microphone and a mixing board. That's all you need. Yeah, it's only on the one song, but very light, very light. There's a song called At the End of the Song where it has the most delicate sounding steel drums I think I've ever heard. Delicate is another way to describe this album. But yeah, all throughout, it's just a very sentimental, very morose. The songs aren't necessarily, I mean, some of them are about, losing your lover and you want to die, That's kind of a chilling thing when she comes out with that lyric later on. But just knowing that this was the first one released after Karen Carpenter's death puts an actual, like I said, like a dark cloud over things. I'm going to give this 3 stars. I like the Carpenters enough, but I'm not a huge Carpenters fan. I think that having a compilation or 2 maybe is enough for me. I don't need a bunch of albums, especially when they have Richard Carpenter songs on them. So yeah, 3 stars for this. It's not going to make anybody a Carpenters fan if they're not one already, but if you are one and you want to hear, the finale, the final piece to the puzzle, then you should get Voice of the Heart. A song on here called Primetime Love. A little bit of a low point on here. Got an electric guitar. They're trying to be upbeat and, hey, it comes off kind of Vegas-y or whatever. Could have left that off or replaced that with another song. But it does end superbly with a song called Look to Your Dreams, which is an excellent way to end this album, considering what this album is and when it was released. Just a very sentimental song that just, it's just a perfect ending to this. So Karen Carpenter, rest in peace. Excellent voice. The voice is the main character here. It's the main event. Now, since we're talking about albums from 1983, and a lot of those, of course, contain that one track in each album that's that sort of pseudo-Jamaican reggae kind of song. You know how the 80s were, where they always had to have that one song on there with that little island tinge on it. We might as well talk about an actual reggae album. And Burning Spear had one in 1983 called The Fittest of the Fittest. Excellent reggae album. Definitely has, if you're just looking for the straightforward, no bullshit reggae, this is where you'll find a lot of it. Now, there's not a lot of diversity here, but it does have the usual reggae elements and a lot of bass in this. It definitely has the bass that'll just lift you right up and float you right along as you just kind of go. That a lot of the melody kind of carries the bass tune in the song. Starts off with the title track. A lot of these songs, including The Fittest of the Fittest, all about survival, all about repression, all about the strife of... a lot of these are about Africa, actually, similar to the Peter Tosh album I was listening to earlier and reviewing. They're not so much Jamaica focused, but more on Africa, so that topic kind of pops up here and there. Old Man Garvey is one of the tracks in here, and I'm assuming that is about Marcus Garvey, a polarizing figure in African history, to say the least, among Africans and also Americans as well. So I'm pretty sure that's who Old Boy Garvey is. Maybe I'm wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I think it's Marcus Garvey he's singing about in that song. But yeah, this definitely has a lot of the great reggae elements. It's nice to hear a Burning Spear album all the way through. I'm more familiar with a few of his 70s albums, but he's still getting it done in the 80s, and he's still putting out albums to this day. I think his latest album came out just a couple of years ago. So he's got, about 30 solo albums at this point. and you know, a bunch of live albums in there as well. So rarely, I mean, I've never been disappointed by one so far. So this is the same one, and it's super basic reggae. It's kind of timeless. You know, it does. Well, there is one song on here called "For You," love song. You know, everything I'm doing, I'm doing it for you. Not quite as ridiculous as like the Bryan. I'm not saying it's like a Bryan Adams. Those are just the lyrics. But that song at the '80s synths, they're here, they're present. It's like, turn those synths up. Woo! Here they are in the song "For You." So if you're listening to this and you kind of forgot when it was from, that song will remind you. Oh yeah, this is 1983. Little piano melodies pop up in the song "Firemen," and also the very last track, "Visions," where it's got this. It reminds me of another song that's driving me crazy because I can't figure out what that little piano riff reminds me of. So if you've ever heard the song "Visions" from Burning Spear, what does that little piano riff, what other song is that in that? A lot of the ska-type horns present as well in a lot of tracks, especially in Africa. One of the second to last track on here also has that little tight guitar that used to show up in the Bob Marley and the Wailers songs when they had that American production put on them, that little tight like little 70s thing going on there. So it's got a lot of those elements, and it does not disappoint. 4 stars for the fittest of the fittest from Burning Spear. On November 21st, we got the debut from the band The, and it's called Soul Mining. Now, I'm not a huge fan of this band. I've got a couple of their releases. Infected on CD, Mind Bomb on a record, and I've always thought they were kind of okay. I know that they are darlings of the music critics, and they do have a definite fan base. There are people who are absolutely in love with this band and would give this album 5 stars without even thinking about it. I had never actually heard this. I mean, I kind of heard it as background music. I know, and somebody had the tape once along my life's journey and was playing it. So, but this is the first time I've actually concentrated on listening to it. Heard it 3 times. It is a slow build. You do have to kind of get a little bit into it and really concentrate, and some things come out. But still, it didn't blow me away. Like, I know it has blown away some people. I mean, there are some people that are just way into this group. And I don't really get that out of it. The first track, I think, on here is the weakest. All of my life, I've been waiting for tomorrow. It's just a basic synth track. It's the kind of thing that comes on and you're like, so this is the band everybody's raving about? Giving 10 stars to and 5 stars, and oh my God, bidding war over them, and oh my God, what label's going to get this wonderful, huge... Okay, and then the next track is a little bit of a step up from that. This is The Day Your Whole Life Will Change. Really optimistic, actually, and a different sound, a little bit of a, accordion and fiddle thing going on in this, so it's like right away you get some variety, so that's cool. The singer's vocal, though, there's not a lot of variety in that. It's this kind of thing all throughout the album. He sings like this, and it starts off, it's like, okay, how long is this going to go on? And you realize it's going to go on for the entire album. But at least the music has some variety. So vocal is not the highlight here. Let's not put a spotlight on that. That Sinking Feeling is next. All about, living with moral decay and it's the cause of all your problems. And so we go from, this is the day your whole life's going to change to like moral decay. So it does have this sort of bipolar, roller coaster of emotions going back and forth. So like I said, some nice variety in this. There's a longer track on here called Giant more towards the end that has this percussion build-up that starts off with just really basic drum machine tracks and then just builds and builds and builds. So that's really interesting. So there are interesting things on here, but I can't really... So much of the album is just kind of there for me. I'm going to give it 3 stars. It may be 3.5. But for me, this doesn't rank to the point of being a 4-star album. Again, it's a lot of drum tracks. The vocals are just, they get old after a while. The lyrics, there's some interesting stuff going on lyrically, but then again on other tracks it's not so interesting. The song on here, The Twilight Hour, is probably a top track. Great narrative in that one with the lyrics. You can really get into that and sort of, they're very interesting. But then you also have songs like the title track, Soul Mining, where it's just loaded with cliches. You know, it's like a thief in the night. Someone stole your heart, or, you know, whatever. Someone captured your heart like a thief in the night. And it just goes on and on like that. It sounds like something that was written by Desmond Child. Like John Bon Jovi is hearing this song going, damn, that's a lot of cliches. So it is, you know, it is averaging out to be about a 3-star album for me. Again, I know that there are people who are absolutely blown away by this group, and not so much. I think I do like the cover art though. It's completely contrasts with what you're going to get. You see that cover art and you think, man, this is going to be powerful and emotional and just visceral. This guy's screaming on the front, and then the vocals, you get like this throughout the whole thing. It's got different cover art for the UK version, but again, this is one of those albums where the US one is completely different from the UK one. Well, I mean, not completely, it's slightly different. And then you have cassette versions with extra bonus mixes, and the UK cassette's different, and so there's a lot of different variations. I went ahead and went with just the US vinyl 8 tracks on here, so that's the one I listened to. I will say too, another positive about this album is the sound of this. The sonic quality on this is absolutely phenomenal. It does not have that boxy 80s compressed sound. It's wide open soundscape and meticulously recorded, it sounds like. Very well produced. The 3 stars for Soul Mining. Head over heels is a phrase that keeps coming up in music in the 80s. There's the Accept song, there's the Tears for Fears song, there's the Go-Go's song, there's a lot more, and there's also the title of the second album from the Cocteau Twins that came out on October 24th, 1983, at least in the UK anyway. And I've only heard like maybe, I don't know, 2 or 3, maybe 4 Cocteau Twins albums kind of here and there, you know, background, and then actually reviewing a couple. And this one, their second one, Head Over Heels, definitely my favorite so far that I've heard. The Cocteau Twins, unlike the Thompson Twins, it's actually 2 of them. It's Robin Guthrie who provides much of the musical landscape here, and then Elizabeth Fraser who does these vocals. And her voice on this is a perfect for this type of music. It just blends right. It's more of like an instrument that is accompanying all the other instruments in this just enchanted pond of sound. I guess you could call this early dream pop. And it definitely is dreamy. I mean, this is, again, the kind of thing where you just listen to and just drift off. They provide this musical, like, it's just this air mattress that you just float on. And then you realize there's no mattress and you're just floating. Great stuff here for those who like that type of music. I'm not the hugest, is that a word? I'm not the most huge. I'm not the biggest fan of dream pop, but this is stellar in that genre. So, yeah, it's not the kind of thing where I can really pick out different tracks and be like, oh, this track or that track, and, you know, this is my favorite or whatever. It is really more of an overall listening experience. It starts off with the track When Mama Was Moth, and with a title like that, you know exactly what you're getting into. That's followed up by probably what is one of my favorites on here, 510 50 Fold. Just absolute dreamy, just brings you in, and just you're just enveloped in this sound. So those are some of my favorites where they do that. The ones that I'm not as big on, I guess, are the ones where they try to go more in a straightforward pop thing. I mean, there's definitely no like full-on top 40 hits on here or anything like that. But they're, when they kind of go more into that direction slightly, it becomes a little bit less interesting to me. Tracks like My Love Paramore and Sugar Hiccup. Sugar Hiccup's a little bit repetitive with the lyrics. But yeah, this is mostly just excellent, really. And I'm going to give this 4 stars. It makes me want to hear more from the Cocteau Twins. There's nothing, like I said, there's nothing on here that is just like stand out, blow you away. Oh my God, the best track on here. You absolutely have to hear this. It's just a really nice listening experience all the way through. So 4 stars from the second album from the Cocteau Twins called Head Over Heels. Paul Rodgers from Bad Company put out his first solo album in 1983 called Cut Loose. He's cutting loose the chains. He's getting Bad Company's left in the dust. Now he's out on his own. He's going to do the music he's always wanted to do. He is in the driver's seat now. He's the only one in the car. And we're flying down the road with solo Paul Rodgers. It's not all that, though. The first track is called Fragile. You better want me. He says that a lot in the song. Now, this sounds a little bit louder than a lot of Bad Company. I'm talking about just the first track here. But it's so loud that it kind of drowns out his vocals. And a couple of times his voice kind of cracks like that. I'm not sure if that's intentional or why, because, you know, Paul Rodgers is known for having one of the greatest vocalists, and he's kind of got this unassuming vocal where you really have to listen and you go, wow, this guy's a magnificent vocalist. You know, I'm talking about the Bad Company stuff. Without trying to sound like he's really trying to impress you. He just makes it sound very, you know, kind of like not a lot, like effortless, basically. So that's Fragile. You know, a little bit louder on the rock and roll there. Lyrics are pretty sparse, and he's kind of drowned out a little bit. Then after that, it's the title track, Cut Loose, Cutting Loose from the Chains. You know, you're still kind of rocking out a little bit here, and it's all right. Live in Peace is after that. And that's where, for the first time, you hear a song that kind of sounds a little bit more like a Bad Company song. You know, why we can't all live in peace and that whole thing. But it's decent. It's okay. Sweet Sensations after that. And here all of a sudden, whoa, we are really, you're instantly reminded we are really in 1983 here. Here come the synths. But again, the vocal, he does that vocal that's more in a Bad Company kind of traditional sound. So yeah, it's a little bit of a mixture there. It starts off with a little bit of a different thing with the squawking voice every once in a while in the first track, and now we've kind of eased in, and it's kind of going into more of a Bad Company thing. But the music, especially Sweet Sensation, definitely got the synth thing going on. That happens with that vocal again in a song called "The Morning After, the Night Before," which is a redundant title, because usually The Morning After would always be Of the Night Before. But it's another one of those tracks where, you know, he's the rock star, he's gonna, you know, he's got the groupie or the girl or whatever, and then he's gonna leave and never see her again. I'll never see this room again, I'll never see you again, but I'll always remember your name. Her name's what you're gonna remember? Okay. So yeah, there's countless songs. These rock stars in the 70s, man, they thought that everybody could relate to these songs about being out on the road and, well, I'm gonna love you tonight, baby, but then I'm off to another town. I'm moving on down. Oh, that's a Bad Company song. So yeah, we've got that tradition still going with the 1983 version of Paul Rodgers. Boogie Mama is a boogie rock tune, you know, similar to, again, what you'd find, you know, Bad Company's albums, they had that little 2.5 minute, like less than 3 minute song on there that was always a little boogie rock number. That's Boogie Mama on here. North Wind's pretty cool though. I like that song. That's definitely a highlight on here. A little slower, a little more atmospheric, a little more of a haunting kind of thing going on there. Not way out though. I mean, but it's, for this album, it's a highlight. And Talking Guitar Blues kind of has like a B.B. King feel to a little blues rock number to wrap it up. So there's a little bit of a variances here. You know, a little blues rock, some boogie rock, some synth rock going on, some Bad Company flavored stuff. But overall, it's a 3-star album. It's pretty solid 3 stars. You know, I'm not saying it's 3.5. It's not 2.5. It's definitely a 3-star album, and it didn't do too much. You know, it didn't get a lot of exposure. I don't know that this got played a lot on rock radio. I definitely don't remember any videos or anything from it. This is still early on. Some of the rock stars from the 70s wouldn't do videos, you know, still at this point, but they'd change that tactic coming up in a few years because, you know, they realize, hey, if I'm going to get any kind of exposure, I need to have a music video. And of course, Paul Rodgers would go off and be in the firm, and you know, that would be all over the radio because the big song had the word radio in the title, Radioactive. And so yeah, this one just kind of gets lost in the shuffle of things. And so yeah, 3 stars for Cut Loose from Paul Rodgers. And so that's going to do it for this particular video in the series going through the albums of 1983. Chronologically, it is a deep, 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 deep dive. And thank you so much for joining me. In the next video, October of 1983 continues as the Style Council are introduced. I'll also talk about albums from the Cocteau Twins and more. Hopefully you'll be here for that as you were for this one, and maybe even some of the other ones that have happened. I hope you're enjoying this series at least half as much as I am. Maybe even more. That's my real hope. But either way, I definitely appreciate you viewing these videos. I know it's a lot. I know the journey continues and continues and continues, but you look at it this way, every video has completely different albums in it. I'm not repeating any albums. I'm not talking about the same old things over and over again. You gotta at least say that. I mean, they're all different albums. They just all happen to be from the same year. So that year, 1983, continues in the next one. I'm Robert Fitton, and I will hopefully talk to you then.